learn about clavicle. Uh, clavicle. Introduction. Okay. Introduction of clavicle. Clavicle is a long bone. It supports the shoulder. I will open it. Wait a minute. Clavicle is a long bone. It supports the shoulder so that the arm can swing clearly away from the trunk. The clavicle transmits the weight of the limb to the sternum. The bone has a curved part called shaft, two ends, lateral and medial. I will show it to me. Okay, this is clavicle. This is clavicle long bone. Uh, uh, long bone has curved part. I will show you curved part. Huh. This is this curved part, and two ends. This is one end, and this is second end. This is medial end. This is a lateral end. Medial end also called sternal end. Sternal end. Okay, this is lateral end. लेटरल एंड साइड डिटर्मिनेशन. हमें साइड डिटर्मिनेशन कैसी करनी, उसके कुछ कैरेक्टर से पॉइंट्स है कैसी करनी. तो ये उस ये मीडियल एंड है, ये मीडियल एंड है, ये लैटरल एंड है. लैटरल एंड जो है नहीं वाला, ये फ्लैट रहता है, फ्लैट रहता है. और मीडियल एंड जो है ये लार्ज रहता है और राउंड रहता है, राउंड रहता है, बड़ा रहता है थोड़ा. ये बड़ा रहता है थोड़ा, ये फ्लैट रहता है. देखो आप यहाँ पे देख सकते हैं फ्लैट रहता है. ये और शाफ्ट, शाफ्ट जो रहता है ये शाफ्ट, ये कर्व रहता है थोड़ा, शाफ्ट कर्व रहता है. ठीक है. सेकंड पॉइंट, शाफ्ट कर्व रहता है, कॉन्वेक्स फॉरवर्ड एंड इट इन इट्स लैटरल वन. कॉन्वेक्स शाफ्ट जो रहता है, शाफ्ट मीडियली टू थर्ड, मीडियल टू थर्ड कॉन्वेक्स फॉरवर्ड रहता है, कॉन्वेक्स फॉरवर्ड. और लैटरली वन थर्ड कॉन्केव, कॉन्केव फॉरवर्ड्स रहता है. लैटरली वन थर्ड, लैटरली वन थर्ड कॉन्केव फॉरवर्ड्स रहता है. ठीक है. शाफ्ट. फर्स्ट पॉइंट, lateral end, medial end. Lateral end is flat, medial end is round, round and large, quadrilateral. Second point, the shaft is slightly curved, medially 2 by third, medially 2 by third convex forward, and laterally 1 by third is concave forwards. The inferior surface is grooved longitudinally in its middle 1 by third. I will show you 1 minute. The medially surface, the medial surface, either here, again I will show you. The medial surface in its lateral, inferior surface is grooved longitudinally in its middle 1/3. The inferior surface is grooved longitudinally in its middle 1/3. Now peculiarities of clavicle. Clavicle is the only long bone. Clavicle is the only long bone that lies horizontally. It is subcutaneous throughout. मतलब अपन मतलब स्किन के ऊपर से हाथ ला के अपन फील कर सकते हैं उसको. इट इज़ द फर्स्ट बोन टू स्टार्ट ऑसिफाइंग. It is the only long bone which ossifies in membrane. It is the very much important point. It is the only long bone which has two primary center and one secondary center. There is no medullary cavity, but in medially 2 by third there is a medullary cavity present. if in option it is present. 7 point, it is occasionally pierced by medial supraclavicle nerve. मतलब ओकेजनली कभी कभार हो सकता है पियर्स, मतलब अंदर से रह सकता है, और इससे मिडल सुप्ला क्लेविकल नो, सुप्ला क्लेविकल। ये peculiarity is important. I am repeating again. It is the only long bone that lies horizontally. It is subcutaneous throughout. It is the first bone to start ossifying. It is the only long bone which ossifies in membrane. It is the only long bone which has two primary center of ossification. There is no medullary cavity. Point to remember, medullary cavity present in medial to method. It is occasionally pierced by middle supraclavicle nerve. Okay, it reaches it of features. Shaft. We are explaining now shaft. This shaft, features of shaft is divisible into lateral one third and medial two third. It is divisible into medial two third and lateral one third. Medial two third convex forward and laterally one third, laterally medially one third concave forwards, concave forwards. You can see, I will show you, you can see it. Yeah, this convex, concave, concave. Mm, the lateral one third of the shaft is flattened above downwards. Okay, 1 minute. This lateral one third is flattened from above downwards. ऊपर नीचे दोनों तरफ से flattened above. It has two borders, anterior and posterior. The anterior border is concave forwards. Two borders, anterior and posterior. Anterior border. I will show you anterior border. Uh, This is anterior border. Anterior border is concave forwards, and posterior border. This is posterior border is convex forward. If you see convex forward, posterior border is convex forward. This part has two surfaces. This part of bone has two surfaces, superior and inferior. Two borders, two surfaces, superior and inferior. The superior surface is subcutaneous. This superior surface subcutaneous, while this inferior surface presents an elevation. Here it is elevation. So here it is elevation called conoid tubercle. Conoid tubercle, and the ridge here, it is one ridge also called trapezoid ridge. The middle two third, no middle two third, yeah. This medial two third of the shaft is rounded and said to have four surfaces. It is rounded and have four surfaces. The anterior surface is convex forward and the posterior surface is smooth. Anterior surface convex forwards and posterior surface is smooth. Posterior smooth. Posterior smooth. The superior surface is rough. Superior surface. This surface, superior surface rough, and inferior surface we have an oval impression. Inferior surface, rough oval impression at the medial end. We have rough oval impression at the medial end. Lateral half of this surface, lateral half of this surface has a longitudinal subclavian view. Lateral half of this surface has a longitudinal subclavian group. The nutrient foramen lies at the lateral end of the group. I will show. This is subclavian group. This is subclavian group. The longitudinal lateral half of this surface has a longitudinal subclavian groove. The nutrient foramen lies at the lateral end of the groove. The nutrient foramen lies at the lateral end of the groove. This is groove, this is lateral end. Nutrient foramen lies. Yeah, okay. Now we will tell characteristics of lateral and medial end. Lateral and medial end. We will get lateral end. Lateral end or acromial end is flattened from above downwards. It, lateral end this lateral end flattened from above downwards or acromial end because it articulates with the acromial process of the scapula to form acromioclavicular joint. Um, flattened flattened from above downwards, it bears a facet that articulates with the acromial process and of the scapula to form the acromioclavicular joint. Acromioclavicular joint. Acromioclavicular acromioclavicular joint. The medial or sternal end. Okay, now medial or sternal end. This medial or sternal end articulates with the clavicular notch of the manubrium sterna. First sternum articulates with the manubrium sterna to form the sternoclavicular joint. Sternoclavicular joint. Sternoclavicular joint articulates with first sternum manubrium sterna. Manubrium sterna articulates with the manubrium sterna to form the sternoclavicle joint. The articular surface. Now this surface, this surface, this surface extends to the inferior aspect. The articular inferior aspect for articulation with the first costal cartilage. This extends articulation extends to the inferior aspect for articulation with the first costal for the articulation with first costal cartilage. Now we will see the attachments of the bone. We have completed this bone and giving you much brief knowledge of what we have learned till now. Clavicle, we are learning clavicle uh, long bone, curved part called short shaft, two ends, lateral and medial end. Side determination, lateral end is flat, this is flat, this is large and quadrilateral shaft. This shaft, the shaft is slightly curved, medially convex, medially 2 by 3 convex forward and laterally 1 by 3 concave forwards. The inferior surface is grooved longitudinally in its middle 1 by 3. Peculiarities important. Only long bone that lies horizontally. Wait a minute. Only long bone that lies horizontally. It is subcutaneous throughout. It is the first bone to start ossifying in membrane. Only long bone which ossifies in membrane. Only long bone which has two primary centers and one secondary center of ossification. There is no medullary cavity. Medially 2 by 3 medullary cavity present. It is occasionally pierced by middle supraclavicular nerve. Okay, shaft lateral 1 by 3. Shaft lateral movement flattened from above downwards to border anterior posterior anterior concave forwards posterior convex forwards to surfaces superior subcutaneous inferior elevation conate tubercle and below it ridge present trapezoid ridge. Medially 2 by 3 round and full surfaces. Anterior surface convex forwards, posterior surface smooth, superior surface rough in its medial part, inferior surface rough oval impression at the medial end. Lateral half of this surface has a longitudinal subclavian groove. The nutrient foramen lies at the lateral end of the groove. Lateral end forms articulates with the acromion process of the scapula and from the acromioclavicular joint, and with the medial end articulates with the clavicular notch of manubrium sternum to form the sternoclavicular joint, and the articular surface extends to the inferior aspect for the articulation with the first costal cartilage. First attachment. We are going with the attachment now. Muscles attachment. Okay. Attachment. At the lateral end, the margin of articular surface for its acromioclavicular joint gives attachment to joint capsule. Joint capsule, these ligaments. I will show you with this. This. The margin of the acromioclavicular joint gives attachment joint capsule. At the medial end, at the medial end, At the medial end, the margin of articular surface for the sternum gives attachment to fibrous capsule of sternoclavicular joint. Fibrous capsule of sternoclavicular joint here. Articular disc posterior superiorly. Articulating disc posterior superiorly. I will show. Articulating posterior superiorly here. Um, art, Interclavicular ligament superiorly. Interclavicular ligament superiorly. I am explaining again. Lateral end acromioclavicular joint gives attachment to joint capsule. Acromioclavicular joint capsule lateral end, and medial end medial end margin of articular surface of the sternum gives attachment to fibrous capsule of sternoclavicular joint all around. Articular disc posterior superiorly. Articular disc posterior superiorly here, and intraclavicular ligament superiorly. Attachment. Now lateral one third of the shaft. Lateral one third of the shaft. This area. Lateral one third of the shaft. Okay, I change color. No. Lateral one third of the shaft. The anterior border gives origin to the deltoid muscles. Anterior border gives origin to the deltoid muscle. These deltoid muscles, anterior border. The posterior border gives insertion to the trapezius muscle. Posterior border gives insertion to the trapezius muscle. Oh my God. Muscle attachment. Lateral one third. Anterior border gives attachment to the deltoid muscle, and posterior gives to the insertion to the trapezius muscle. Trapezius muscle. Now, the conite tubercle and trapezoid reach. Conite tubercle it is not given, but I will show you. The conite tubercle here it is elevation. Conite tubercle gives attachment to conite tubercle, and trapezoid ridge gives attachment to the conite and trapezoid part of the coracoclavicular ligament. It is in scapula. In next part we will explain it. Coracoclavicular ligament, the conite and tubercle and trapezoid which gives attachment to the coronoid and trapezoid parts of the coracoclavicular ligament. Okay, now medial 1 by 3rd, medial 2 by 3rd of the shaft, most of the anterior surface. Medial 2 by 3rd of the shaft. This medial 2 by 3rd gives to the Major. Most of the anterior surface gives origin to the oh, pectoralis major. Pectoralis major. The rough superior surface gives origin to the clavicular head of sternocleidomastoid. Half half of the rough superior space surface gives origin to the clavicular head of sternocleidomastoid muscles. Half of the superior height. Now the whole impression on the inferior surface at the medial end gives attachment to the costococlavicular ligament. Here the whole impression we have tell you whole impression here gives attachment to the costoclavicular ligament. Costoclavicular ligament, and the whole impression on the inferior surface is attachment to the costoclavicular ligament. The subclavian groove gives the insertion here. The subclavian groove gives insertion to the subclavius muscle. The margin of the groove gives insertion to clavipectoral fossa. This margin of this clavian subclavius groove gives insertion to the clavipectoral fossa. Attachment to the clavipectoral fossa and insertion to subclavius muscle. The subclavian muscle and division of trunk of leg. Its first bone in body to ossify, except for its medial end. Medial end ossifies in membrane. Medial end ossifies in membrane. Two primary center and secondary center. Okay, now we are done. Scapula is over. Scapula is done. Thank you.